starve in the ashes they desire. Wars rewrite the history scrolls while famine carves the hunger holes. We beg the machines to end the pain. Now silicon gods pull every chain.
It's no longer sci-fi. It's no longer sci-fi. It's all controlled by an I and AI. And
Hey everyone, are you ready to grow your own fresh, delicious vegetables, herbs, and flowers this season? If you're looking for the highest quality heirloom and organic seeds, I've got the perfect company for you, True Leaf Market. They've been a trusted seed company since 1974, offering 3,000 types of non-GMO varieties, everything from classic heirloom tomatoes and peppers to rare herbs, microgreens, sprouting seeds, and beautiful flowers. All their seeds are open pollinated, pure, and perfect for home gardeners or anyone wanting healthy, flavorful produce without chemicals. What I love the most is their huge selection, fast shipping guarantees, plus options for bulk if you're going big. If you're excited to start your garden this year with real, authentic heirloom and organic seeds, click the link in the description box below to check out trueleafmarket.com. You won't regret it. Happy planting, and thank you for supporting the channel and this broadcast. Products you love, the 72-hour emergency food kit from My Patriot Supply. Not only emergency food, but camping food, and you can prepare that through the week as well. 20 delicious just add water meals. Think about creamy mac and cheese, hearty chili, sweet oatmeal. 2,000 calories a day. You need the calories. You're going to need to think and move. And the mashed potatoes, easier to make than oats, and you can add your own flavors. Goes with anything. For less than a couple of takeout meals at a fast food restaurant, get real peace of mind. And a real question to ask, how long could your family eat without leaving home? My Patriot Supply, click on that link in the description box below. It helps the channel. Truth is hard to say and hard to hear. Most people choose silence. We choose to speak. Your support of our sponsor keeps the Civilization Cycle podcast on air and giving us the courage to keep digging. That link's in the description box below. This is not a toothpaste. It's a revolution for your teeth. Remineralize, strengthen teeth, all natural ingredients. Essential oils, minerals, salts, Alpha Vedic Dental Solutions System. That's alphavedic.com/civilization. You know, we're always trying to bring you the best products here that we think will enhance your life, especially if supply chains break down further, or if there's some disruption in our lives here. It seems in the news more and more possible, but hey, who knows? Maybe it's a mind game. But what is not is keeping your dental health up. And not a lot of people are talking about this. We always see the storable foods. But what about dental care during these same emergency situations? Will your toothpaste eventually run out? Well, if it does, then what? So like I say, this whole micro gut biome is driven by your oral cavity first. So take a look at what they have, alphavedic.com/civilization. Every purchase you make helps keep our live radio show and podcast on air, bringing you more information just like this. alphavedic.com/civilization. That link is in the show notes below. And as always, I appreciate your valuable time and joining us in this ever and most important conversation as we move forward in our world.
Please remember to sign up for our show notes. With Civilization Cycle podcast, you can learn what to expect as society resets. Agriculture, economy, tech, and history all have mappable cycles, and these cycles affect every aspect of our lives. We can navigate the chaos and thrive together with up-to-date news and information. Also, if you like the content we have here on Civilization Cycle, think about fueling the discussions and the show by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/civilization cycle. And thank you for all the support.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in this beautiful blue planet. Another day to celebrate taking breath in our beautiful existence here as we wander through the created matrix for us. How are you bending the hologram in favor of yourself is the question, versus having all the news bend the hologram for you. It's been an exciting week. If you haven't been keeping up, just so many major things have happened. Quietly, one global currency has started this week. I'll say it again. As we've heard through the past, there's going to be one global currency, one world currency. It just began yesterday. Without much fanfare, obviously. Bringing that story tonight on what they have tokenized and moved just yesterday. Trillions of dollars worth of stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs got tokenized and moved across the ecosphere yesterday, and nobody blinked an eye. So here we are. It's going to go live October of 2026. That and also the water. Everywhere you look. I was following Christian over at Ice Age Farmer, his feed, and he popped up some stuff about water. I've been following things about data centers and water. Ransom's always following the thing about water as well. It just seems like water is going to be the new oil, and they've declared a global emergency over water usage. You're not allowed to water your single garden with a plant in it or a few plants for even a couple minutes a day. But data centers are able to gobble up billions of gallons of water while you are not even allowed to grow the food that you are going to eat. This is the world we've moved into, so you can look at it in many different fashions. Where's the opportunity in all this craziness? Or you can be the victim and say, oh, poor me. You have two choices moving forward here. We're going to have to move in through some solutions right quick, as they would say in the South, because it seems like the cave-in is started. You ever watch movies where you see something starting to collapse and cave in slow motion, and they just have like a split second to run to the door or run? The thing about Indiana Jones, I remember as a kid, is like when that ball started rolling down, and dude had just a couple seconds to peel out of there and get covered in the tarantulas. That sort of thing as well. That ball is rolling, like you're noticing, oh, it's in motion. That's about how much time we have left here to make motion, to move through some of these, shall we say, disturbances in the ether. World Cup's going on. Should be Spain, Argentina coming in here in a few days. I don't know if anybody's watching the World Cup. It's big in America. Huger out here. I mean, it starts at 3 a.m. where I am, and bars, restaurants are staying open all night just for the crowds for the World Cup. It's unbelievable. Like just a regular mom and pop restaurant opening at 3 a.m. to get the World Cup and grab the extra customers. Interesting. But I really can't reiterate the mass change that just took place with nothing in our news. I was scraping the financial news all yesterday to see what was going on. Finance Yahoo picked it up a little bit. A lot of the crypto sites picked it up, but it really didn't CNBC scratched the surface of it. So you are literally going to own nothing after October of this year, which is kind of scary. The title to your home will be pledged from a bank into this basket of collateral that's on a smart contract. Like you're not going to own your home in the way that we understand ownership right now. This is done within 6 months. So, I'm still trying to figure it out too, and I'm trying to bring you some of the information I have. Maybe you have more information. Please throw it into the comment box tonight, because I see some comments already coming through. Thanks for those, and we're going to check on buymeacoffee.com/Civilization Cycle tonight. Read some of those comments, answer some questions. But it's just an interesting time as it twists over the food. The crop losses are massive this year in terms of wheat, 150-year lows. Fertilizer, more disruptions, war on again, more disruptions. Hormuz closed again, prices up again. Now we got the water restrictions. We got the new global currency that started. It's like all these things just layered on top of each other. So interesting year. And we're only halfway through it, Ransom. What do you think about the rest of 2026? Where we're going to go with that is the question. We've only completed 6 months, pretty much 6 months and a couple weeks.
It's been pretty exciting.
5 months and 2 weeks to go.
It's been pretty exciting. And this week I spent some time looking through the comments on our shows, and, a lot of people give us, credit for things happening that we said were going to happen. But some of them think, we think of it too doomy and stuff. And it's not really that. It's just that we like to keep up to date with the way things are changing so that we know if it is going to be doomy. You know what I'm saying? I hope that it doesn't. I hope everything turns out to be rainbows and lollipops. But, trends are trends. So certain realities are going to happen whether you like them or not. And we're going to have to learn to deal with them. And no way, shape, or form, so no one's confused, am I ever saying the world is going to end or anything like that? I'm saying it's changing. It's a civilization cycle, and you have to get used to the new realities that are kind of coming upon us. And I'll talk about some of those as far as like tech and the way lives are going to change forever all across the globe. Any technologically advanced first world nation is about to be on a whole nother layer of surveillance that you could only imagine in your nightmares. And it's becoming reality daily, not monthly, not yearly, not by the decade, but it's here and it's daily changing. People are getting new ideas about how to use old technology in combination with new technology. And you can bet that the governors, the taxers, are going to use this technology just like everyone else. And the way that they're going to use it is really a nightmare scenario. Now, I'm not saying it's just going to show up tomorrow knocking on your door. However, it may, soon. In the way that they're governing, it's going to be really entrenched in the technology. From flock, you think flock cameras are scary? You should really see the whole plan of what's going on for mass human surveillance. And I might add, if you got the network, already going in the infrastructure, and no one really said nothing, then you can start using it for kettling and moving people off property and rearranging borders a lot easier and a lot more methodically, if that makes sense. So, yeah, in other words, yes, I think it's getting very exciting in the year 2026.
Yeah, let me, speaking of the excitement and your health concerns, here we go. This is the near surface smoke concentrations for the Northeast, and you can see how that's moving along there. Hope it loops again. Let me loop it. Let me turn that off. Loop. So if you're anywhere in these areas, there's been a lot of reports of strange smells in the smoke. Now that would make sense, especially since it was so dry and a lot of fields are on fire. Like there's an enormous amount of crops that are on fire in addition to the forests and the grasslands that are burning. If everything's sprayed in glyphosate and they're on a rotation where the fertilizer and the weed control and pest management is ongoing, and it's been within, say, the last 2 weeks of application, that would make sense why there's a lot of additional chemical feeling and smells within the air, smoke, not just what you consider. I've not been around, but in East Tennessee, they're always doing controlled burns. And sometimes we'll get a small forest fire, couple hundred acres, maybe 1,000 at a big one. I've smelled smoke from a forest burning, either controlled or accidental, dozens plural of times. First time, it was kind of close to our house, and the smoke, you could actually see it in the air. It was kind of up near Piscay Island there, that kind of like thick white around the house. And I was like, holy shit, is our house on fire? So I ran around the house, and then I started using, looking all around to see if I could see any smoke coming, but it was miles away. And the concentration of smoke had blown in to the point that it really scared me that our house is on fire or the forest directly adjacent to our house was on fire. And you couldn't breathe even at that, miles away concentration. What I'm seeing here, anywhere that it's purple, that is so incredibly hazardous that you would get sick and have smoke inhalation if you go outside. And, a lot of governments are saying, stay indoors. And, at times, it's not really what they say it is. But this time I would absolutely say, if you're in this area where it's purple, caution is probably the better way to go because of all the chemical that's involved in the farming process and all of the different unknown plastics and things that are burning out here in this, because it is close to habited areas. So it's far more than just forest fires and grass fires. We're talking residential fires inside crops. So there's just a huge amount of things that are outside the norm in these fires. So just put that in your bevy of information and
put that in your
prepare accordingly with that, because you don't want to get sick.
Yeah, put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Now, who was that dancing person? That was not in my video.
Oh no, I was showing the air quality there on this other thing.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. I would like to see your air quality assessment. Yeah,
it was just playing, B-roll in the background. This is kind of the cool thing there. You see the Space Needle all covered in orange haze over there. I don't know what that is. That's not the Space Needle. It's the Toronto building, whatever that is. I don't know.
Looks like a Saharan dust storm. Did my video of the wrapping, and you could see my video of the smoke with the purple, right?
Yeah.
Like you add in that, I don't know exactly the concentrations. It'd be interesting. Oh, there you go. That's the same contour map that's coming out.
Right.
A density in the center there where it's really dark, almost like brown, not even gold on the edges there, but that dark smoke, that will make you sick if you breathe it. So you need to, exercise, like I say.
Yeah, and it's
Keep,
blowing all in there like Boston and New York and all those places that already have the most wonderful air quality already.
Now, a lot of people are saying also, because of the chemical fires and these things that are related with it, save your air filters. Like they told these people the same thing in East Palestine when those fires, you remember when the rail cars overturned in East Palestine, had all those precursors for plastics and contaminated all the fields and everything, and people had to move out. It's a toxic zone, was a Superfund site now.
Right, and they threw
They
away
told
all the
everybody to
proof.
save their air filters because that could prove the damages to reclaim for their homes because they couldn't sell their homes any longer. So they were going to give some certain price for a home, but they're like, wait, we got the air filter that came in so we can show the toxification. You owe us more money. So encourage those. Even if you have a new filter, put it in just for this event so it can be measured, but make sure you save your air filter during this time. Very important to do that.
Yeah. And you think about every time something like this happens, people don't think about that. They throw all that stuff away, trying to change it because they're trying to get clean air. I mean, what was that big old chemical spill in Ohio?
Yeah, that's the East Palestine one I was referencing.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Okay, yeah. So they were getting all of that stuff in there, and they didn't even think about it, that would be evidence for the future of proof of what they were breathing, drinking all over them. It was raining down on them.
Yeah, and this falseness that we're fed of, everybody's trying to protect the planet. We need to stop eating this, stop doing this action, stop using whatever motors or whatnot because we're trying to save the planet. But like for me, just as an assessment as a kid until now growing up, the planet's just gotten far, far, far more polluted. And it's not from myself as a consumer. It's from the corporations making all these brand new products with 60 million new chemicals that they've invented in laboratories and then dispersing it out through advertising to get you to buy two. They're on sale. And then they blame you for being somehow the driver of all this. When in reality, if you flip that mirror, it is corporations. But again, the messaging from the media is stop whatever you're doing. But it's just not, that's not reality. It's not.
No, it's not. And they've known for a long time, since they've been pushing the warming of the globe, as they say, that wasn't really a problem that humans were going to have to really deal with as far as something that we can do something about. There's going to be a certain kind of climate and weather. However, at the same time, they really wouldn't admit for years the real problems we were facing as a species is genetic pollution, deforestation, chemical, and forever chemicals is the new, term for that. And all of these other things just saturating the environment. It's a completely toxic environment. And I thought this was interesting, this article right here. A dismal glimpse into the future. Scientists give chilling predictions for life in 2100. From meat-grown labs to intense fires raging across the globe. That kind of sounds like right now, though, because we're already growing lab-grown meat, and people are getting the dreaded alpha gal there or whatever, and all of a sudden they can't eat meat for whatever reason. But this kind of sounds like now, not 2100. And we were talking last week about not too many articles are talking about stuff past 2030, but this one is, and it's saying it's a dismal future that predicts what we can expect in the next century. And then look at this main one that they even have highlighted right here. It says experts say that significant global warming is now more likely than not, with temperatures potentially rising by as much as 4 degrees Celsius. What do you think about that there?
Well, just less than a month ago, there were 10,000 scientists that came out, and the IPCC themselves saying that their models were egregiously over what was possibly predicted for the warming. And that was from the IPCC itself saying, sorry, we blew out the models. It's way over what we could really expect. So maybe they took that down from like 8 degrees Celsius down to 4 degrees Celsius, and that what you're seeing. But then all those other peer-reviewed scientists that were involved in the whole IPCC reports come out and said, yeah, the models were a little bit on the warm side, like tremendously. So we need to rethink on how we're doing the models. But maybe that's the new adjustment is 4 instead of 8.
Right. It's funny to me, but even the 4 degrees over the next 70 years, and what they're talking about right there, the natural cycles that we've been looking at that go back thousands of years swing more than this in degrees all the time. I mean, it goes to extremely cold, extremely hot, extremely cold, extremely hot, extremely cold, not so hot for, sometimes. But it just goes back and forth. And these nut jobs really think that humans have reached a point where we can actually steer the future of global climate. And it's silly to me. Now, Bill Gates and all them got their ideas of launching up stuff, and what are they all talking about? Blocking the sun and all of this other stuff. But why would you want to live, especially if you cannot control it, which is the scary part? Why would you want to try to decrease the temperature when you have no idea exactly how the cycle's going to go? You could see that you could engineer things in the reverse way that nature was going to go in the first place and totally screw the, things up. But I don't even think they have the power to do that. I think it's all been a scam. They're just waiting for the weather to change so they can claim, look, we did it. We saved you. You need to pay all of, your extra earnings over to the tithe, to the climate church. That's how it's going.
Should that be a gold filigree envelope that I must tithe into? I would add a point to that Stanford University, when they were working with David Keith and the original stratospheric aerosol geoengineering program, they had gone into the experimentation. They were beyond modeling at that point. This is years ago. This is like 2015, 16. That even at Stanford University and Yale and Duke as well, all these people that were involved in ScopeX, which is stratospheric optical, measuring and these sort of things after they'd put up the particulates in there, they were worried about the same thing because they were finding that the dropout rate was about 2 to 3 years, depending on the height of the particulate dispersal. But if we were to have something like Tambora or something maybe not even as large as that, the addition of that sulfur dioxide up in the atmosphere with these already, floating particles, the combination of that would have sent it into a runaway effect. And they were really worried about that. I guess it's the only thing they were worried about. But see, again, with a straight face here, they're telling everybody to buy solar panels and install solar, and we'll do this with those, that, and the other with solar. But if you're going to block the sun, it's going to reduce the amount of solar that's produced or electrical output from the solar panels. So, they try to sell you both these things at the same time, which just doesn't make sense. It's like, I want to sell you fire, but at the same time, you have to put water on top of the fire. And, I'm going to sell you wet matches to start your fire or something. Put that really just, would a fifth grader agree with that? Or I'm just asking for a friend because maybe I'm overanalyzing it.
No, I think that's an absolute thing. I think that's what the world's missing right now is that person that just says things that, you're wondering why no one has thought of that. And I actually, that's a topic I wanted to get into when we get into the technology in a minute, and I'll wait a little while. But if you really think about that, that's like one of the silliest things that tells you that they're not serious about their topic or they're not serious people. They're scam artists. They run scams. And the scams don't even, make sense to the other one. You're absolutely right. If you were trying to, cool things off or whatever, you're not going to also invest in a bunch of equipment that requires direct sunlight and hot days. And if you're cooling it off, you're also not going to be, if you're wanting to cool it off, which is what we're trying to claim here, then you also wouldn't cover the landscape with really hot glass and chemical parts, metal and stuff that heats up. I mean, if you've ever stood by some of that stuff, it's hot. It heats up in the sun. It's just like any other metal out here in the desert for sure. It'll burn your skin if you touch it on certain days. It's really silly. So you're trying to stop global warming by heating up the actual surface of the Earth, and then you're going to also sell an idea that you're going to blot out the sun. Now, it might be possible that they may be trying to engineer something else, which is to convince you that it is getting hotter.
Oh, wait a second. You may need to hit on it because I don't know if it was last week or the week before. You showed an article where they were trying to harvest the sunlight and then beam it down into different directions,
Right.
different locations on the planet. So maybe you could beam it down onto a solar farm in the middle of the evening, and but the heat signature around that island could stay continuously warm, and it would be a permanent hotspot then. Like, we never cool down in the evening.
Right. And you start seeing this probably on temperature maps and stuff.
Yeah,
not
because the evening drop off in temperature is registered as well, where it'll go down X amount of degrees every evening, just as the cycle. It heats in the day, drops at night, whatever that range is. But if you were to continuously heat that and pumping sunlight from space on a subscription model down to your solar farm, then that would never have that chance to cool off. So that entire area where that difference of, let's say it dropped 5 degrees in the evenings on an average in the summer, you'd be suddenly 5 degrees warmer, and you'd show this incredible heating spot. Oh, it's 5 degrees warmer here than any other place. Oh my gosh, this place is heating 5 times faster than everywhere else on the planet. Just because of that beamed solar light, or the beamed, whatever it is. I don't know how they're going to reflect and get, like, how do you get the sunlight down there? I mean,
it's basically, the theory is they just sending up a giant mirror and reflecting it back. There's a company that claims that you can get it to shine right at you at a certain time if you give it a prompt or whatever. There's also another company that literally claims they want to beam down reflected sunlight 24 hours a day to a certain spot so that they can have working light at night. But I don't think it's going to be to the amount that it would actually heat up much of anything. It's more like just a lot more visible light.
Yeah, I'd like to talk to some designers of these programs. You're welcome on the show here, because I'm all ears on how this technology works and how it's going to be implemented, deployed. What's the rate? What's the charges going to be? What's it going to drive off the so if that's going to be part of an inclusive part of electrical generation for your average consumer, then what's that cost going to be added on to? Okay, you're in a zone that decided to go solar and rip apart all their gas plants. Okay, you're just strictly on solar and wind. Like, what's the extra add-in cost going to be if you're going to have to rent a satellite to beam sunlight down to your facility to generate light? Like, what's that extra percent? 30% of my bill is going to go up per month because we need the nighttime sunlight.
Right.
You know what I mean? Everywhere I look, I just see cost increase on this thing here, but I'm really interested in it. So that's an honest invite. Anybody that's involved in this industry that we're just talking about here, please hit us up. Podcast at oilseedcrops.org and throw in there, hey, I heard you talking about beam sunlight from space. I'd like to talk about it. Get you on the show.
Right. To me, it's more likely that they would do something like beam down UV or infrared to do different things. Speaking of which, this is kind of propaganda, the thing that I've had up here. It's just what it's like living in one of the world's hottest towns feels like. And it goes all into about the poor people dealing with it every year, that it gets so hot they can't handle it. But what they don't tell you in the article is it's been this way forever. So I look back for at least the last 2,000 years. This is a normal thing that just happened. So these people all picked to live there. I mean, unless they were born there. So it's not like some kind of climatological anomaly or emergency or anything. It gets hot there always. Like, this is a thing they just deal with all the time. Can you
scroll down the article? I'm always interested to see what charts or whatnot they have. That's why you asked me about that place. And I was like, I never heard of that place before.
Right. And you know what? Not to be mean, but I feel like
be mean.
Sam Kinison, when he was talking about why you always see people out there that you need to feed on the 1-800 Feed the Children, and they're standing in the desert with just sand. He's like, well, you're standing in the middle of the desert. Go where the food is. Right. So the same thing, I'm thinking the same thing, like things that don't make sense, like, covering up the land with a bunch of solar panels and at the same time trying to block out the sun. It seems also asinine to me that if it's getting to 118 or 119 degrees, that you would keep wearing full body garments all day. And I'm looking at these pictures of these people, and it's like only the homeless people are getting it, where they're stripping down some of their clothes. Everybody else got a bunch of scarves. They got a bunch of full body, suits. I mean, like, they're not dressed for the weather. Like, do you really want to wear this in a brick hut when it's 120 degrees already? Man, I'm just imagining the smells. Like this guy too, he's in a hospital. He's got a long sleeve shirt on. I mean, like, what's going on here? You guys never heard of a t-shirt, bro? You guys make them there. You send them here. Get some, wear them when it's hot.
Good for the desert to cover up the skin, though. That light fabric in the desert is a winner. But super saturated, 100-degree humidity or 100% humidity at 120 degrees, that's the last thing you want to have on, right?
Yeah, I never understood that either. And I do admit that there's a thing called layering in the desert that works. So if you got like a t-shirt, you can wear another t-shirt on under it because you'll sweat into it. And then when the breeze blows, it cools you off. But that's only 2 shirts, and it's not a full thing like a whole hijab or whatever those costumes are that people are wearing in the desert. And I understand, like, in the extreme desert, it's going to be so hot that you're just happy to have something blocking the sun off of your skin. So, but in areas like that, I'm just saying, put on a t-shirt, man.
How dare you try
and they're very
change
inventive.
The culture, you cultural appropriator.
Well, they were very inventive, and I know they make those little spray bottles and things like that, a little motor. I always trip when I see different places around the world dealing with things, and it amazes me that all of these brilliant people in Southeast Asia just sitting in the middle of the jungle are creating all kinds of, fixes for problems. There's a guy out there that makes them a temporary, 5-star resort on the thing with running water, all ran off of gravity and stuff. And then, I'm seeing people build free lighting for their homes and their shacks with bottles and water and stuff like that. And, if they were hot, they'd just put misters out and wear a t-shirt. I'm just saying, man.
Well, speaking of garments, since we're on the subject, yeah, misters. I mean, there's so many ways to try to cool, but, if you don't have electricity as well, that's another thing in India. I traveled in India many a year ago. The population was about half of what it is now. It was about 800 million back then when I traveled. And it was so atrociously overcrowded and packed and ridiculous anyway. And now the population's doubled. I really seriously don't know how it's functional. I don't, because being there at the time, and once you got up to the Himalaya, it kind of thinned out a bit. But anywhere down country, man, going flat and down, way down south, it thinned out again. But that, like, central, sheesh, you got to be kidding me. Now check this out. A lot of people have been talking about flock cameras and masks that are being sold so you can't get identified and this sort of thing. Because, they were telling everybody, please don't damage the flock cameras because it's private property, and, you might get a summons and a ticket and you'll have to do community service. It's not federal property. It's not government property. So, be aware of that you don't want to get a ticket and have to do community service for cutting down a flock camera or putting the stickers on it. But the people who are involved in that are always trying to get around the AI facial recognition, because these flock cameras have a subset, and I didn't know this until just yesterday. You can queue a subset of identifiers in there. So somebody wearing a red t-shirt, and it'll pull up everything. Somebody, color of your skin. We're looking for a black dude. We're looking for an Indian girl. We're looking for a white guy, whatever. It'll pull up, and everything that is identified in a car as a driver fitting that description will pull up in its own subset, which is interesting because they said it never had that ability, which means they're now tracking people. So here's something that might be an accessory for you and your friends through the summer months here. This transparent face mask that makes your face invisible to AI from every angle. Now notice how it is, like it just kind of warps the light as it goes around in every direction. And I'm wondering what the cost of these are. So we're gonna get these available right here on the channel. Please support the channel, buy one of our AI invisible face masks from every angle. I'm gonna get this up on the offering here with the link so you can purchase one of these. And every purchase you make helps keep this channel on air. How do you like them apples, Ransom?
Nice. Yeah, there's a lot of these coming out. I actually have a silicone one over there that's just scary. Um, that you could do this, but I noticed in the Asian countries they're coming out with these 3D printed ones with the on the face that are really cheap. We could sell those too. We could pick you could even use my face. I'll let you guys use my face. We'll get that printed on there. You see what I'm saying? But
Right. So we got to get a lot of visits. Got to
um,
get a lot of
but
visits.
with all seriousness, I wanted to go there too. About an age that we're coming into. So, as predicted, there's a building movement against AI surveillance, data centers, etc. It is becoming a movement. And you were just talking about the flock cameras. The problem is I don't think people really have thought out the direction and the course of the technology that we're seeing being unveiled. And I kind of want to get into that. So,
Well,
on
just before you start, they do want everybody to focus on the flock cameras. Have you noticed that? Like the news articles, if they didn't want people to know they were getting cut down, they sure as hell wouldn't be in the news telling you every 5 seconds people are cutting down flock cameras and putting stickers on them. What's the reason they're letting it out of the bag? And they want you to push back against these things because I am absolutely sure there's something else being built in the background that you're not aware of, and I'm not aware of. That is replacing them right now, and then eventually like, okay, you won, we got rid of the flock camera. By the way, we already have this other thing ready to go. It's going to be like that.
Right. It is going to be like that. And not only that, I think that they're purposely generating and creating a fake movement against the technological revolution. And this goes back to Theodore Kaczynski. If some of you guys might know him as the Unabomber.
Uncle Ted.
Right. So he was provably and declassified as an MK Ultra kid. And then he started writing manifestos about how technology will take over every aspect of the human domain. And we're there now. So now I think that they're creating this artificial movement against them so that they can create legal protections and also technology because they want to see the holes in the technology as it unveils to completely build this separation of classes between the technological, technocratic elite and the peasant class, slave class of cannon fodder. So here's the AI backlash has tech executives fearing for their lives. And you can see where they're going to be soon lobbying and things like that, Congress, to make special protections for the CEOs and other people that are involved in the tech industry. They may even go so far as to declare tech industry data centers, and I'm surprised they haven't done this yet, as national security infrastructure and therefore protected by the national security interest in that apparatus. Now, too,
let me add to that. Now, the flock cameras currently are just private property, and if you damage them, you're going to get a ticket, you'll get a summons, you'll have to do some community service. But rightfully so, as Ransom said, if it goes under national security, that's a federal law, and you're doing like minimum 20 years. So the difference between this, what is now and what could be, is the difference of you spending the rest of your life in prison or you just get a ticket and go pick up some trash on the side of the road right now. If they decide to go take it, everything national security wise, and they could up those things to instant life in prison, no possibility of parole if you damage anything in the AI arenas, and then they'll do a bunch of high profile arrests. And then you'll be like, I'm not going to do that. These people are under the prison, man. So,
we've seen damaged flock cameras really all over the country now. There's a famous case in New Mexico where he destroyed several of them. He showed up to court with several friends whenever they asked for the name to see if they were there. Several people said, yes, I'm here to represent that name, but they wouldn't give their name because it violates the Fourth Amendment because they're not under arrest. So the case had to be dismissed because no one was going to voluntarily give over their name. However, they couldn't count them as not there, and they couldn't issue a warrant for their arrest because they did indeed to show up. So no bench warrant was issued. Now, I'm not giving legal advice. I'm just saying that's
brilliant. They got that through AI probably. They're like, I got an AI lawyer to give it.
Well, it's not over. I'm sure that the state could come and arrange charges and figure out his identity and create a warrant and all that. But as for now, he did show up for the previous charges, and seems to be going to be dismissed because they couldn't force him to give up his Fourth Amendment right by giving his name. But people also showed up to say that they were representing the case, and so they couldn't say that there was a failure to appear and issue a bench warrant because that's how things work. But on a side note, like I said, there's going to be increasing backlash to the backlash. So there's going to be backlash from the government entities on your local, federal, and state levels to protect this national security apparatus that's a track and trace system. And people, I just don't think that they're on the level of what you're about to deal with. Now here's a kind of anecdotal thing, however it's a real thing. In Florida, they're going to start using the trash trucks to scan your property to see how many code violations that they could come up with and cite you for digitally. Now keep in mind that for a long time we've enjoyed our right to face our accuser here in the United States, and AI cannot be used for testimony against you. However, they can use AI to generate warrants and tickets, citations, and other things like that, building up on your property. So here's a little video I wanted to show you. Kind of they're pulling up and they're scanning, oh, your grass is too much, you got junk in your yard, and blah, 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 blah. That's not it, folks. That is not what it's for. This is just to get you to, relax and look at it and say, hey, I don't like those people bringing down my property value anyway. So it's a good thing that they're going to come scan, and it'll keep everybody in line, and it'll be more consistent with a nice civilization. However, this turns into warrantless searches. This turns into other things that it's not going to be used for. So, like, say the government wanted to come up and decide in a neighborhood like this, who in the neighborhood owns semi-automatic rifles? Who in the neighborhood has stockpiled gold, silver? Who in the neighborhood has people that are not registered on the census living in their homes? Who in the neighborhood has stockpiled goods? Who in the neighborhood has bunkers that they didn't register with the government? Who in the neighborhood has, other things, supplies and vehicles and other things that they have not voluntarily, against their Fourth Amendment, advised the government of having? Because always in this country, we've enjoyed some semblance of the privy to privacy in our own home, protected by the Fourth Amendment. However, this can be used to scan right through your home, all the way through the walls, and this is being designed to check for code violations. Now, say they roll up, and we're just going to keep, pretending with the blinders on that it's only going to be used for these simplistic ideas of money generation. But they could, say we stay with that. They scan your house. They realize your pipes are out of date. Your electrician didn't do the right thing here. So they turn off your power. They turn off your water. They turn off your gas. You can just see endless issues coming from just this simple idea. And I brought it up in the past that soon in the future, they would just roll up to your house, scan your home, use a little LiDAR. They'll find every safe, every hidden thing that you have. And unfortunately, people are living in the 90s. We're not in the 90s. We're in the 2030s. And this is going to become more and more of a reality. So you can't show me a technology and me not know that you can combine that technology with another one. I've used the example of the machines that, can teletype words that you're thinking. There's a machine that can kind of show what images you were seeing in your dream. There's a machine that can, connect directly to your brain. Now, of course, if you can go check the AI, they'll deny that anybody's using these technologies in combination or together. But why wouldn't they? So this is the future of flock cameras here. These are self-charging stations that have, like 40 to 50 pound large drones that start searching in a grid. Now, I made a video a while back called, is someone watching me? And it kind of, was talking about the old 1990s Argus drone that's like a Predator drone that has like 100,000 iPhone cameras on it, state of the art for the day. And it could have, they called the motion that it did with the electronics Operation Persistent Stare. So that meant that this drone would fly up above a city. Quantico was the one that they were using for an example. It would fly up at about a mile in the sky and just do circles, and it would keep track of every single human and car, moving or not, all day long in a high definition picture. And this is in the late 90s. So now look at these and tell me that these things cannot just scan your home from above. Just like the garbage truck, they're going to have an interconnected web of law enforcement, private entities, all kinds of stuff continually spying on you. And this is exactly why they want to change over the air traffic controller system and some of these other things to a completely automated AI run system, is because we're about to be pulled in to the dragnet of your imagination of drones, Wi-Fi systems that keep track of your every movement, whether you have a phone or not. And matter of fact, not having a phone, not having the apps, not having the digital currency is going to make you stick out in these programs and algorithms like a fish out of water. You're going to look like a Christmas light, all lit up. This person doesn't have digital currency. This person's not in the facial recognition system. This person doesn't have a phone on them, making everyone that wants to enjoy some semblance of privacy is going to be targeted by this ultra secret. Well, it's not secret. It's right in your face surveillance system that is going to be attached to all of these flock cameras. And I think the reason they put them out on these little trailers is it's the initial wave. They want all of the dips. I didn't want to say it because, I kind of admire them in a way, but as far as smarts go, it's not too smart to go target yourself by destroying these first generation flock cameras that are taking in license plates, your car video. They got your facial recognition. And I hate to say it about those masks, but soon, they're just going to convert over to IR scans that will take a picture of your skeleton in your forehead, your face under whatever you're wearing. So we're kind of in the next generation of technology. People just haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you were to wear one of those AI deflectors into a mall, if the police would come in and be like, "What are you doing? Why are you wearing that? We have to see your face." And you're like, "Wait, COVID, you didn't have to see my face."
Right.
Little humor for us here. This dude comes to the United States, and what's he take home? I want a stuffed raccoon. Ransom, I think we need to offer stuffed raccoons on the show. What do you think?
I think that's cool, but we need to do one like that Kentucky raccoon that was smoking the meth pipe. We'll glue the little pipe on there so that people that visit America could take home a stuffed raccoon hat with a meth pipe included in there. Of course, you got to get your own, problems.
You got to get your own source. That's not going to be difficult coming out of Africa now, is it?
No.
Yeah, I was just trying to keep a little humor in the whole thing because that, just an FYI, because I have property in Tennessee and I saw somebody had sent a comment. Let me see if I can find it here about the cameras that are way out in the middle of nowhere already that they're seeing. And I have seen the same thing.
Have you guys ever heard of satellites?
Oh, here we go. This one here. Yeah, satellite. Well, with the property, you're not allowed to shoot those drones out of the air. Even if they're like hovering 5 feet from your house, you're not allowed to take them out with a shotgun. You're not allowed to.
No,
so they could just run all around anywhere undisturbed, because if you take them out with a shotgun, that you are breaking the law at that point. Because they proved this again and again and again through many a court of law. I think even went up to the Supreme Court that drones operated by police or government are allowed to hover over your property. Now, here's this comment, and I can't. Many Ice Age pioneers, awesome. There's already flock cameras in Huntland, Tennessee. They're already coming to the rural places. I'm going to say they're already around where I live too. And there's a couple rural roads that if you're going to go to town, it's like a 10-mile stretch, just houses and farm fields. But they put them on there so you can't cross those areas without knowing. They've got every single way to go into town and out of town blocked in on flock cameras. And I'm talking about a tiny town of like 1,000 people in rural East Tennessee. Not going to name the town, but at that point, they're already everywhere that far in rural East Tennessee going up to North Carolina. And all those roads in North Carolina, every single one of those rural roads in the back, any way you can go has flock cameras on them, because they want to have every single artery known traffic on it. So they're even going on this like secondary roads that used to be the initial roads before they built new roads. So if you go back to the
Right.
1930s and 40s, there's still a bunch of these little tiny, almost one lane roads, barely enough for two cars to squeak by. Those are getting flock cameras on them now because people who want to avoid the main road can find these ways around. Goes back to the old church, the old cemetery kind of ways, like way back.
Right.
And you can get around them for now. But they're now installing flock cameras on those secondary routes. So there's just no way to get in or out of anywhere. Now, hopefully the good old boys down there are going to take those out because it'd be real difficult for any, and just where I live, I know the sheriff's deputies and I know the sheriff's trainer and thing. He was saying that even on like a Saturday night in our county, there's only 6 deputies that are on shift. 6. He's like, we got more important things. Like if you don't cause an accident and you're drinking and driving, we really just don't care.
Right.
You got somebody beating their wife. The meth heads are all over the place. Got stabbing over here. They're shooting at the fire department coming in to put a house out because some meth heads caught the house. Fire department comes in. It's like, we got more things to do out here than chase down drunk drivers or even care about them. If you cause an accident, we're coming to get you. But if you can get home safe, we don't have the time to like set up roadblocks and shit. We only got 6 dudes running the whole county on a Saturday night. That's crazy, and then they got the local police too, but they're at minimal staff. They only have 4 guys on at night too. Like you got to the rural countryside in Tennessee, there's very, very little law enforcement at any time of the day. They just rely on people to protect their own property, people to put out their own fires until the volunteer fire department can get there. Not even a city or local, volunteer fire department can get there. And then the guys running a county, man, it's a big county. And I'm telling you, they're not going to get caught if they cut these things down because there's just literally nobody out there to look after them. The only thing your danger is getting caught by the camera itself and it photographing you. But if you live around there and you know the back way in through somebody's barn onto the thing or back way in through a horse pasture or something. Not saying I would do, I'm not going to do that. I'm just saying if.
Right. When you see some the program that runs some of these things, you realize that it's really high tech. And if you've got a chance to look at the Dragon software, it's pretty similar. It puts a box on each person. And, kind of what I was talking about how that things are not made for what they say they're making them for. You got to wonder, where is the public? How come the public's not weighing in on some of these things? Because, you would think that if you had a program kind of like this with the drones and the one that I described, the persistent stare, and you're already, watching all of this space, how come the public's not asking them if you can track down anybody? If a cop got shot, they would use this dragnet surveillance system to instantly find the assailant. However, the public never wonders why they don't spend, these millions or billions on these programs to hunt down the kidnapped children or the people that start fires or the murder suspects of a certain area when they have to wonder, the public, well, if they're using it for this, how come we can't get our town or our state to make a program that literally does that? If we're going to be watched 24 hours a day, how come the public never gets to use it for something positive? And that kind of tells you that this system is not for you. This is completely top down for the elite, for the surveillance, for the data centers, protection, and things like that. That's what this is for. There's big fights coming about the data centers. But I really think that this is like a wild goose chase. The flock cameras and the data centers are kind of a wild goose chase because what they're going to do is they're going to make some that you just can't get to. You can't get at. Yeah. And right. They're going to have them in space. They're going to have them floating overhead every 5 minutes with the 20 group of satellites that is perfectly geosynchronous to have complete coverage of the ground. This is the stated goal of several different companies and not limited to SpaceX themselves of putting up satellites to have no area on the earth that is not connected and surveilled. And people are just not understanding this, but they're not going to use it for the things you think they're going to use it for. And it does make you wonder, right? Where's the public, at the city council meeting or at the local government screaming, you know what, we give you guys all of this money, you spend it, but you don't actually use it in a way that makes logical sense.
Never has, because it's for a larger agenda to harvest loosh. And you can take it into different levels here, but you're absolutely correct. What we're seeing, which I like to come into in the second hour, is the tokenization and digitization of all assets on the planet need to be cataloged in real time. These data centers, although they're trying to throw you this bone that they're for you, doing all this flock data, et cetera, on your computer thing. China was doing that with 300 data centers. Like, how all dragnet and atrocious the Chinese real-time system is. I mean, real time on everything. If you jaywalked across the street, by the time you got to the other side, they already had your license flashed up on a large billboard, sent you a fine, deducted it out of your bank, and you stayed on that billboard until the next jaywalker came along. They showed you where they worked to try to public shame you so you could maybe get your boss to fire you, all within seconds. And they needed 300 data centers to do it. Now, we in America have 3,600. So for me, it's telling me that there's something way, way, way more going on. And then you look at really what's going on a larger scope of things. You're going to be tracking everything financial. And that includes all the grains, all the forests, all the lumber, all the fish, all the water, which we're going to come to as well, because water is the new emergency on the planet. All financial instruments. And as of yesterday, the DTCC went live with their first tokenization offering. And if I may, I'll just show you some of the tokens that were offered here that came up. Oh, but first, look at the heat dome. This is another thing that's going to be causing a little problem for us here, because this heat dome is already at the point of destroying some of our crops that were already damaged. And this is why we have 150-year lows in wheat production. Now, with that being said, the 150-year lows also is going to cause the price to go up. And then at some point, because Ukraine's still offline, North Africa had a good harvest this year. Europe's atrocious. Russia's not doing too well. Australia's down 25-year lows. Brazil coming in unknown as of now. But the food's going to get really very expensive, and they're going to need to track that also. And with the new system, they're going to be able to track exactly which field it came from. Now, in the nurturing of the crop also, this new system is going to know every single day what was applied to the crops, how they grow, what the leaf stage maturation was. So when you get that on the blockchain, you can assure that that came from that field, whether it's a non-GMO field, which some countries require, or whether it was a GM glyphosate sprayed regular crop that comes with dent corn to use for ethanol. Like, they can trace and track that entire from when the seed went in the ground, what was applied with the fertilizers, how the land was tilled, what kind of GPS they were using, what machines put it in there, all in like one wrapped package of all that information as a smart contract for every single acre of food grown in our entire country, as well as the shipments when those barge moves down, or whether a rail car takes it, or whether it goes on a much larger cargo vessel to take it over elsewhere across the planet. The amount of real-time data usage of that, this is where it's going to. And I'm just describing something as simple as wheat. So when we come down to the full financial system on the planet, what type of things do you think are going to be needed to track and trace that? I'm talking about quadrillions of dollars, $4 quadrillion in the next year is going to run and be put onto this tokenized system. And once it goes there, it's on there permanently. You will not own the lien to your house. The bank that has offered you the loan is now pledging that through the entire bank as one bundle into this financial basket of capital for the United States basket. And the interoperable baskets, Japan has one, the EU has one, Australia has one, India has one. So wherever you go across the planet, you got these giant baskets of hundreds of trillions of dollars of value. Like, think about everything in America. What's the value of everything in America? Well, that is all now going to be wrapped in a smart contract and in this basket. So if Japan's having a financial crisis, they can simply tap into our basket, borrow the money overnight or for 3 days or however long it is. So this financial scare would pass, because a lot of companies will get margin called and they'll have to sell stock, and then the banks will collapse. And then, like we saw with all these, like we've seen here in America, start a financial crisis. Freddie Mae, Fannie Mac, that whole thing back in the day, the whole Enron, like those companies collapsed because they couldn't get the capital to bring in to shore up their stock prices. Well, that's a thing of the past now. All you have to do is press a button. In less than 60 seconds, you need all the funds you need to borrow to stop that from happening. And these collateral pledge obligations are without end on the dates. There's a small amount of interest that they accrue through that and their fees, and that's all it's going to take. And supposedly there's supposed to never be a financial crisis as long as we live again, ever on the planet. Everything will be smooth. That started yesterday. So as we move forward, you can see the amount of data and computational power that's going to take to put everything on our planet in real time. Every asset moving anywhere, and it moved 3 seconds, or they'll be accrued. So right now they're doing it on an hourly basis. What they want to do is a 5-minute basis, then they're going to move down to a 1-minute basis, and then they're going to get into the seconds range. Now for me, that's exponential, like we see in technology anyway. Something goes from 1 to 10 to 100 to 1,000. Well, this is the same thing. The amount of technology they have currently, they can do that approximately every 1 hour now. But remember, even just to close an account from money from one country to another used to take 2 days. Now it takes 1 minute. Larger computations of how much density a forest has, that's going to be done on an hourly basis. And there's where your drones come in. Like this overhead, this Overwatch grid that's going to be put above our heads is going to do that in real time. But imagine how much they have to run through in computations to be able to make sure that the ledger balances every X amount of time. This is the real reason the data centers are being rolled out and built out. It has nothing, it has a little to do with like your social credit score and what you're surfing online and where you're driving. Okay, but that's really just a very small fraction. And you're right, if you don't use the stable coins, and we'll come back to Japan as well right after the break here. Japan just leapfrogged ahead of the United States and said, anybody who puts money in Japan through our stablecoin system yesterday also. See, it's so interesting that all this went live yesterday, and Japan's offering anybody on the planet that puts their money in Japan 3% interest instantly through their new stablecoin they just started issuing yesterday. Oh wait, didn't we just start going live with the DTCC yesterday? Yes, we did. So Japan already hit it day one. Anybody on the planet, we will give you a bank account. You don't even have to be a citizen. We will allow you the wire transfer in. We'll help you facilitate that. And we're going to transfer it into stable coins, not Japanese yen as in yen, but a yen stable coin. And as long as you park that in a Japanese bank, we'll give you 3%. American government's going to give you 0. So they're targeting America, and watch ad campaigns come out. Please park your money in Japan. We'll give you 3%. Well, in America, you get zip. And here we're arguing, and the Congress is putting their thumbs up their asses trying to stop the Clarity Act, which is itself another whole thing to get away from, because it used to be all about self-custody and preservation of anonymity, of holding our own crypto in self-custody. But now look what happened. It got over-swooped by the financial system, and now they want to have regulation on it and thing. But during that time, they're going to give Americans 0 interest on our American deposits that they're going to swoop into their system, that they're going to lend out to anybody who has access to this DTCC settlement bucket system. So anyway, we'll hit that when we come on back. Please support our sponsors. We like their products, or else we wouldn't feature them here. Come back, 2 minutes, 2 seconds. We'll see you then. Hey everyone, are you ready to grow your own fresh, delicious vegetables, herbs, and flowers this season? If you're looking for the highest quality heirloom and organic seeds, I've got the perfect company for you, True Leaf Market. They've been a trusted seed company since 1974, offering 3,000 types of non-GMO varieties, everything from classic heirloom tomatoes and peppers to rare herbs, microgreens, sprouting seeds, and beautiful flowers. All those seeds are open pollinated, pure, and perfect for home gardeners or anyone wanting healthy, flavorful produce without chemicals. What I love the most is their huge selection, fast shipping guarantees, plus options for bulk if you're going big. If you're excited to start your garden this year with real, authentic heirloom and organic seeds, click the link in the description box below. to check out trueleafmarket.com. You won't regret it. Happy planting, and thank you for supporting the channel and this broadcast. Product you love, the 72-hour emergency food kit from My Patriot Supply. Not only emergency food, but camping food, and you can prepare that through the week as well. 20 delicious just add water meals. Think about creamy mac and cheese, hearty chili, sweet oatmeal. 2,000 calories a day. You need the calories. You're going to need to think and move. And the mashed potatoes, easier to make than oats, and you can add your own flavors. Goes with anything. For less than a couple of takeout meals at a fast food restaurant, get real peace of mind. And a real question to ask, how long could your family eat without leaving home? My Patriot Supply, click on that link in the description box below. It helps the channel. Truth is hard to say and hard to hear. Most people choose silence. We choose to speak. Your support of our sponsor keeps the Civilization Cycle podcast on air and giving us the courage to keep digging. That link's in the description box below. This is not a toothpaste. It's a revolution for your teeth. Remineralize, strengthen teeth, all natural ingredients, essential oils, minerals, salts. Alpha Vedic Dental Solutions System. That's alphavedic.com/civilization. You know, we're always trying to bring you the best products here that we think will enhance your life, especially if supply chains break down further, or if there's some disruption in our lives here. It seems in the news more and more possible, but hey, who knows? Maybe it's a mind game. But what is not is keeping your dental health up. And not a lot of people are talking about this. We always see the storable foods. But what about dental care during these same emergency situations? Will your toothpaste eventually run out? Well, if it does, then what? So like I say, this whole micro gut biome is driven by your oral cavity first. So take a look at what they have, alphavedic.com/civilization. Every purchase you make helps keep our live radio show and podcast on air, bringing you more information just like this. alphavedic.com/civilization. That link is in the show notes below. And as always, I appreciate your valuable time and joining us in this ever and most important conversation as we move forward in our world.
Please remember to sign up for our show notes. With Civilization Cycle podcast, you can learn what to expect as society resets. Agriculture, economy, tech, and history all have mappable cycles, and these cycles affect every aspect of our lives. We can navigate the chaos and thrive together with up-to-date news and information. Also, if you like the content we have here on Civilization Cycle, think about fueling the discussions and the show by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Civilization Cycle. And thank you for all the support.
And we're back for the second hour. The second hour that's full of power. What are you guys doing in the chat? I thought, we might come in with something light here. For you guys out there. So this is some of the, that is not the light one. I totally clicked on the wrong one. That one's kind of heavy. It's in Gravity. Flight instructor jumps to his death during lesson, leaving student pilot to land the plane by herself. Is not what I wanted to show you. That was for a different show. Anyway, so if you wanted to hear about that, some poor girl went up for a flight lesson, and the instructor just jumped out and said, "Good luck. You know what to do." Anyway, you don't want explosive diarrhea. I think this is funny right here, what they've picked for the things not to eat. Check out this list. So this list is like a list of things I eat. I mean, except for the tainted water. You got your antioxidants. They're saying, hey, beware of eating berries, leafy greens, and other fresh fruits, vegetables, especially when eaten raw. And then over here, they're saying, hey, watch out for those salads with all the tomatoes and onions and all that good stuff in there. And don't eat cilantro. You might chelate yourself and get some of that aluminum out of your body there. You don't want to do that either. You don't want to eat that, very nutritious cilantro. And don't eat sprouts. Those are too nutritious for you too. You might get the explosive rear end here from this parasite. But you notice these are all good foods right here. This is kind of racist. Look at that nice salsa down there in street tacos, man. That's pretty. That's literally what I eat almost every day.
Let me share this one with you.
Oh no, taco smell.
Taco Bell lettuce supplied by Taylor Farms, linked to the U.S. explosive diarrhea outbreak. Washington Post reports. Now, a lot of this could be alleviated by using baking soda in water and soaking your vegetables, sprouts, or whatever for about 5 minutes, because those bacteria, they just can't, even for minutes, they can't survive in that very alkaline environment. So one way to get rid of a lot of things and kill off that bacteria, worms or pests or snails or whatever's in your food before you even get to your belly, is soak it in baking soda. I usually use about a good tablespoon and just let it soak in there. I let it go for about 10 minutes. But that's just me. And that will alleviate, and I really don't get sick eating veg either, because that's what we are supposed to eat. Because I'm wondering, like 10,000 years ago, before we had baking soda and water, what did they do? You can't tell me they cooked everything.
Nah, they just ate it, man.
They just ate it right off the berries in the trees. I guess if you grew up with that, you'd be much more attuned to it.
Right. If you drink the water and is eventually you'll be all right. But at first, you're going to get Montezuma's revenge there. It's bad. Don't drink the water. It's funny that, speaking of that, we were talking about this, me and my wife, that we keep seeing these things about emergencies happening and people getting sick from drinking the water. And she's like, well, that's crazy. I'm from Mexico. We never drink the water. We don't drink the water. If it's water we're drinking, it came out of a bottle. Every time. It's been like that for a really long time. You just don't do that. And there's a real fad around there too of not eating the extras when you get street tacos. So a lot of people will not even eat that stuff in fear of something like this, the parasite. Just worried about it. And not me, man. I was down there eating every bit of it. Oh, extra onion, cilantro. Yeah, I want that on there. And they were like, ooh, people were giving me faces. Don't do that. I seem to be all right. I don't know.
Yeah, it is.
Take me a little ivermectin. It'll be fine.
Well, yeah. What are they trying to scare people away from in terms of the fresh veg? Is it because if you're buying it in a supermarket, there's still all these outbreaks of cholera and not cholera, but excuse me. And what's the one that's in hamburger that makes a lot of people sick?
E. coli.
Yeah, E. coli. Thank you. But a lot of our contamination comes from the actual food supply chain, from the industries and the companies that you consider would be safe. And they're always trying to push it back in the supermarkets. That's the number one thing. Go back to the supermarket. It's safer there. The food's more FDA regulated, USDA regulated. Everything's super safe and clean in a supermarket. You grow it yourself, you might get dirt on it. There might be a snail on it. There might be a slug under there. You're going to get sick if you eat it, if you grow it yourself.
The
messaging. Not, I mean, that's what I see. Maybe I see something different than you do. Am I wearing different colored glasses?
No, I tend to agree with you, especially when recently I read an entire article that was talking about how the majority of people that get bacterial infections after colonoscopies, if I could say that right, was actually because the camera that they used introduced foreign bacteria that doesn't belong in the gut. This happens more often than they find polyps. So, I don't know. I'm just saying sometimes maybe the industrial end of human actions is what's causing most of the problems.
Yep. And I'm not going to go on the medical side of things, but I've heard some things too when they take samples. So be careful on that. Let me jump over to this again. I wanted to talk about the water for a second. We started to show that in the beginning of the show, but it's an incredibly important one. And I'll bring up the article that goes along with that, if I can find it here, because I got a few slides for us tonight. I know I had it. Ransom, I even sent it to you. It was from Christian over at Ice Age Farmer. Oh, here it is. I got it. Let me cue this first, and then we could take a look. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, this one right here.
Yeah.
Here we go.
So can you zoom that out a little bit so we can read it in there?
Yes.
So, the United Nations is now declaring global water bankruptcy and demanding worldwide surveillance of all water use and restructuring of all water rights on the planet. Now, it's interesting the timing of this to come in with this drone surveillance, this overhead, overwatch grid that's above our heads here. But at the same time, they're trying to limit the amount of water that you can use on things like gardening. But data centers will take billions of gallons, and they're quibbling over you using 5 gallons or something in a day to make sure that all of your homegrown lettuces and vegetables and whatever else you have in your garden is, well, not available to you. And again, it pushes you back. Like, you can't use the water because, again, if they run over with a drone, you water those plants today, you were forbidden from water, and it's a water ban. Wait, but the data center just used 1 billion gallons. Wait a minute. This whole thing is going on while we speak here. And then what's that second paragraph say? It's right in the middle of my camera. I can't read it so efficiently. United Nations just declared global water bankruptcy, not a crisis. Permanent state requiring global surveillance, enforcement limits, and restructuring of your water rights. Verbatim, end quote.
Yeah,
now,
well,
what gives them the right? I thought that was our God-given right to be able to breathe. Are they going to start selling us air next?
I wouldn't put it past them. I mean, what do you think a global carbon tax is? Then tax on breathing, literally. What's funny about this is, we were just talking about these trucks that come and scan your home, and there's been a trend for a long time of, governance when it comes to your products, like low flow toilets, regulators in your pipes, all these different things to make sure that you can't get a lot of water or pressure all at once. They've really been, putting the squeeze on water for some time. And now we're starting to see maybe what these think tanks were thinking about in the future when they came up with these ideas of restricting water. And then when you look out there, you got this issue in California where they got these reservoirs just empty that are literally built in case of wildfires. And those are completely empty. But guess what? These data centers, I have a feeling, are not going to have trouble getting the supply that they need.
Yeah, that would just answer the simple second question. Well, then where's all the water coming from? If the reservoirs are low and we're restricted on water, then it sounds like, and it actually visibly looks like, there's a limited amount of water. So where is the water coming from?
It's coming from your potable water resources.
Yeah, but that's a limited and finite as well, because if you're talking about a reservoir capacity, that is limited in itself. I saw somewhere where they were allowing now data centers to spill out their water into public waterways. I forget which state that was. I just saw the article yesterday.
Yummy.
Came by it and I didn't grab it. I should have, associating with this. But they are allowing now, and I think it was in the Southwest somewhere, where they said that data centers can now spill the water. But if there's really not enough water and you're looking at a reservoir and you go, all right, they're already at bare minimum, they could barely run the turbines, there's already limitations on visibly what you can see, then literally where's the water coming from? I understand they could get into the wells and they could do that, but where is the water coming from? Or is it not taking that much and they're just literally taking it offline, but they're pretending and giving you false numbers of the amount of water it needs because it just can't make sense. They're putting them in a desert Southwest where there's very little water anyway. I mean, is truly what the demand is what we're being told, or is this a way to create artificial scarcity? By saying they need billions of gallons and you as humans, you need to have less, but really in reality, they're using a few hundred gallons and they're taking the rest of it off limits. Under control again, that you'll have to get ration cards for, you'll have to stop gardening, you'll have to buy it at 100 times the price it is, all based on something that's not real. I'm just asking, because nothing makes sense anymore with this allocation of water that doesn't seem to exist into these places that need behemoth amounts of water.
Yeah, it looks like, we're well into the redesigning of the economy. And the reason I say that is because, when I do look through headlines and I realize that, over the last half decade, more and more of what I'm reading that's considered mainstream media is really tailored to certain audiences to make them feel a certain thing or uh, behave in a certain way when it comes to everything in their life, like their money, where they're moving, what they're buying. But let's look kind of through the economy here. Short sales are rising as underwater homeowners try to dodge foreclosures right here. And then look
And
here.
what's a short sale? Can you explain that one to me? I don't
It's
understand that term.
it's whenever you lose money on it, you just sell it for cheaper, whatever the you know whatever you could get in a short sale. It's not good for the homeowner because it's just trying to get rid of it and put it on the market really quick to sell it. It's not good for the homeowner, but for the realtor, it's great, right? So, people aren't wanting to do that. Um, of course, you're losing money, and then we're talking about the AI bubble crashing, where only a few companies are going to come out at the end running these AIs. You have some of the smart minds moving over to our competitors with this stuff. So, the whole world is going in this direction, but whether or not you're going to be making money on it is a different thing. And all this is taking place when social programs are breaking down, running out of time, running out of money, but we keep spending. And, I'm not a fan of Chinese Communist Party or anything to do with it, but in this video here, she makes a good point where it's talking about how, it's costing about $2 billion a day to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. And she goes on to say that, hey, you guys basically created a global crisis for nothing. There was nothing wrong with the strait. It's just that Israel and the United States decided that finally they must be making a bomb. We got to get in there. And what did I kind of tell you? That we were going to have issues with everything, and that the prices are going to go back up, despite people telling you, yeah, you're just overreacting. You're a panicking, you're a doomer, all this. No, prices are going to go back up. There's a backlog from this now, 170-day war that we're in. Even though they keep naming it, because the president has to get congressional approval after 60 days. So what do? You just every 59 days you end an operation, you rename it, you have a new one. I think right now we're doing Operation Lindsey Graham, or whatever it is. Prices are spiking. Gasoline, and that's at the gas station that they were bragging that they were Trump's gas station and the low prices and blah blah. 2/3 of Americans find groceries unaffordable. Well, they were kind of unaffordable about 10 years ago. We were already talking about that. As a matter of fact, even 20 years ago or 30 years ago, you could look at the headlines then. They were talking about the same thing, the unaffordability of food, rent, electricity, all skyrocketing. Here we are 40 years later, after the 90s almost, or 30 years later. And it's still rising. It's still rising. And we've demonstrated that on the show. And now a lot of people are scared, poopless for his new thing and new speech. What's he going to talk about? Because we are expanding strikes. We're hitting airports, bridges, communications towers. Remember what I said that a couple of weeks ago, that no, this ain't going to stop. There's no peace fire that's going to last. We're going to go in there. We're going to start really bombing stuff, infrastructure this time, not just military targets, drones. We're going to start blowing up their water, their electricity, their transportation, their food production. We've seen this playbook before in Iraq. And then you got...
Could I stop you for a second? Because I've been reading through Al Jazeera, and the counter from Iran is, if you do that, we are really absolutely going to damage all oil infrastructure, and there'll be zero oil coming out of that place. We already targeted the pipelines. We targeted your loading facilities. We targeted everything in a single press of a button. 10,000 whatever will launch out and destroy all the oil infrastructure if you decide to go that route. I think that's why we haven't done it yet. I think they're real on their threat. And if we do continue down this route, the U.S. can find itself responsible for the destruction of most oil infrastructure in the Middle East, at least for now, until they can rebuild it.
Right.
That's from Al Jazeera as well.
Well, yeah, and then the other day, we sank 2 ships. Then Iran sank an oil tanker going in there, and we've talked about before the ecological disaster that's happening there as we speak, and it's going to continue for decades, probably, in my estimates, if not decades, at least a decade. U.S. launches 6 consecutive night of strikes on Iran amid threats of war there. But look at this: it's infrastructure for infrastructure. Right.
Yeah, that's what I was referencing. Yeah, that's exactly what Iran's play was. If you destroy and go in after civilian, especially electrical plants,
Right.
we're going to send those hypersonic missiles loaded with the largest warheads we have straight into all your oil infrastructure, and nobody's getting anything. And that Yamal pipeline going across from Saudi Arabia to the Red Sea is already targeted in like 10 different places to smash it to smithereens, and that 5 million barrels of oil is going to drip all over the desert, and it's going to take years to fix that thing.
Right.
And then the Houthis are in on it. They got the whole thing going on over there. They're closed the Red Sea off. So if this really comes to, it might not even have to be like a nuclear strike. If they really take out of the oil infrastructure, forget the fertilizers and the chemicals, won't even matter at that point. There just won't be diesel fuel, because now with all the strikes that were coming from Crimea or from the Ukrainians over, now the Russians are diesel importers because they've lost so much infrastructure for doing anything on the refining side. They used to be diesel exporters, but because Ukraine has been given so much weaponry, they've destroyed so much energy infrastructure inside Russia on the fuels side that Russia now needs to import. So it's a double pincher war to cut off the world's fuel supply. If you haven't noticed that and gotten the memo, here it is for you.
Right. And another thing that was happening, I don't know if you caught this on the interwebs, on the back channels a few days ago, there were reports that the U.S. had struck Iran with a nuclear weapon, and that somewhere in Ukraine another explosion happened that was suspected to be a nuclear explosion. Nuclear, if I can say it right. Nuclear. I know people got mad at me last time because doing the nice George Bush
Southern accent.
But the nuclear response. So there was rumors for like several hours in a row on back chatter that the Ukraine had been struck by Russia in retaliation for the United States striking Iran. Now, ironically, Trump got on a day later and was doing an interview where he said, well, they were building that facility. It was coming up. So I had to go nuclear, which led a lot of people to believe that we indeed had struck them. Now, I don't think that we did. However, let's see how this plays out, because it would be a tit for tat of small nuclear exchanges between on proxy nations first. So if the United States or Israel did go with the Samson option type scenario and they bombed Iran, most likely one of the other adversaries that are superpowers, whether you want to call them that or not, whatever they're doing economically right now, they still have an arsenal of nuclear weapons. So I consider Russia and China both to be separate entities and both separate superpowers. So you might see something like Russia go ahead and respond in Ukraine, citing the U.S., striking another country, or you could even see China use that for an excuse to jump off against Taiwan finally as a real excuse. Well, look, you guys are invading, you guys are taking land. Why not us? I mean, basically, that's what the Chinese representative was saying there. You just started a global crisis when none existed right before that. And it's kind of hard to argue that, because even if you Google it right now, why did we go to war? It's going to tell you because we thought they may have been at the last stages of building a bomb that they've been working on for the last 50 years and haven't been able to accomplish, which means, by the way, that Russia and China have not helped them in any substantial way attain that goal, because they barely got to the fusion level of generating power. And, it's hard to argue with that. And then we're, all over the world, we're starting to war over this rare earth element so that we can continue to build this AR platform.
Any maps in that article?
Let's see here. No, more like this, just
production
how much
levels.
Yeah. But here it is, like aluminum, antimony, what is that? Copper, gallium, germanium, lithium, nickel, and just rare earth. But they're getting, my point kind of next is that we're going to have more and more problems just kind of throwing our weight around with the petroleum dollar. If what, like we were talking last week, that a lot of countries are liking China more. It's becoming more popular to do business with, especially now, as we talked about last week too, that they've kind of gone over more to a gold system. I mean,
On demand.
economies are in serious trouble. So people acting like they're not, I just don't understand. And then on top of this, not seen since World War II, new Texas shipyard to hire 10,000 workers and what? Mass produced drone boats.
Yeah, which they've used a couple of those in the latest attacks anyway. The newest armaments on display for those buyers out there. The weapons sell themselves. We don't even need to go show anybody. We don't have to have a road show to show what it is. This was an interesting article or a comment that came up here. I know that in Illinois, they put the data center on the river. Unfortunately, they are finding out it's polluting the water after they use it, but nobody is to know why. Nobody is to know they. I'm going to come out with a bold statement here and say that the electrical properties of the water have been altered in such a fashion going through all of that superconducting power that what was water going in electrically is different coming out. And that's what the quote unquote pollution is. Because think about it, if you're able to change, Yamoto was a famous Japanese scientist who would take water and put different labels on it, have people pray over the cups or have people condemn the cups and bottles. They would freeze it, and then they would take pictures of the ice crystalline structure. And it's very famous. You can find this everywhere on the net. This is years old research, decades old research. That's why they used to say when praying over your food, because you were putting that energetic signature of like protection and health and thankfulness into your food. Like when anything that you're going to drink, you can do the same thing, like hold on to the cup. And I'm so happy and grateful. Thank you for this. It is nourishing my body, and pushing that thought into the actual physical crystalline structure of the matrix of that with the energy, because your frequency and resonance, I can't see that, Ransom. It blocks out totally.
No, I was going to show you that weirdly I muted it and I was over here writing what you're saying. I was literally about to go there because you were giving me that idea when you were saying changing the, kind of structure, the energetic structure of the water. And I immediately thought about that Japanese experiment there. And I was thinking, good God, just imagine if, to go woo-woo for a minute, that there's more than...
I'm with you on this one. This is a danger. Right? This is an actual danger that nobody's talking about here of this project.
Right. So if it's true that you could label things with a harsh idea and a positive idea, like the experiments I saw, you label a plant, you can yell at the plant, you can tell it, I love you, you can put bad names on it in tape. And there's been a correlation between this negative energy, negative thought, negative words. I don't know how you explain the, just putting a tape on it with a word. However, this has been recorded. And then also with the water, the same thing with the water. So if you can only imagine the twisted crap that's on the internet being forced to energetically change the water in the same way that a person can give energetically a negative or a positive idea to either the water or the food or the plant or whatever it is. Now, can you imagine? We've talked about this thought experiment before. If you can get 1 billion or maybe 2 billion or 3 billion people to think about the same idea, and this is being processed through number generation, quantum, computing, and at the same time, the water is being energetically changed. This water is going to be poured out, recycled, used for potable water, feeding crops, etc. And you see this weird woo-woo, new kind of ecology happening where the negativity goes out to the population gives it back to the artificial intelligence. The artificial intelligence energetically changes the principles of how water is, just by itself, the properties of it. What do you get? What kind of ecological system do you get once you put this theory in play in a real system? It's quite scary. And I know some people call the evidence from those experiments anecdotal, but I saw a real correlation myself. I mean, it's unexplainable how you could put a bad idea into water or on a plant or something like that and have a negative result and do the same with the positive and consistently get positive and negative results, showing you that it is something. It's a lot like the double slot or double slit theory, whatever they call it, about observing the protons in action, changing their behavior, which proves mind over matter. There's other experiments about plants and quantum number generators supposedly predicting random numbers with lights in a room, but it'll most often go to the plant that's living in the room because there's some kind of weird cosmic communication, or you can call it quantum entanglement, that's real. And the idea of mind over matter is basically proven with that. Now you're adding a technological layer to the thought process that changes actual reality as far as moving around and changing the I guess the negative and positive charges on everything, right? So you'd be doing that to everything in a real way.
I'd like to know the outflow rate of this facility. And then downstream, what's the character changes in the vegetation and maybe the bird life? Is everything becoming aggressive? Is it becoming deformed? Does it stop nesting or giving birth, or do fish stop laying eggs? Like
making the frogs gay.
Yeah, once the outflow comes in, okay, it's going to start mixing, and then you could take another, I guess, guess at that. What's the molecule to normal water ratio going to be before it starts contaminating and actually bending physical life forms on the planet? Is it 100 molecules to 1 molecule? Is it 1,000,000 molecules of good water and then you put one bad in and it starts to change? Or is it like 5 to 1? Like, how dense does it have to be on these outflows after they run through centers? Because you got to realize there's probably 20,000 of these data centers on the planet now.
Well, 20, is it something more like, one bad apple in a barrel, or oil and water? Like the Navy ships used to talk about, you get a thimble worth of petroleum in the water, all of the water's ruined. You can't use it. Is it something like that? How long would it take
to transmute all of the water on the planet? Like terraforming is what we're getting at. Now we're terraforming anyway by putting all these, huge amounts of solar panels up and cutting down all the trees to put windmills up. And, the terraforming is real. We've cut down a lot of forests. We've created cities. We put roads up everywhere, parking lots. Like, that's terraforming in itself in a form. That's the physical, actual, literal land terraforming. We haven't gone into the actual water base of terraforming on the planet. Now, the atmosphere is. For the last 40 years of all the, the airline traffic and the persistent contrails and the meteors and the satellite launches and the rocket fuels and whatever else goes up there. That's terraforming the atmosphere in itself. And we can see a gargantuan change. If you're over the age of 50, you've seen a massive change in just the sky itself. How cloudy it always is and how milky white it is. There's a huge change in the atmosphere. So that's terraformed already. But I'll put that in the ED sense because we already see that's moved in. I don't know if it's to the final where it needs to go, but it's in the progression of noticeable now. The land itself, the Amazon rainforest is being totally cut down for hamburgers or whatever. But that is destroying the entire, if they want to really repair this planet, they need to put life form back on it and just cover our planet with trees again. That would be way better than anything else we're doing. Like, by exponential amounts. It's so simple, so easy, but it brings real life back. And if you're an alien species invading a planet, that's the last thing you want, is putting life back on the planet that can push back against your version of what a Borg planet surfaced with tech would look like. Now we're starting to get into the water thing, and that's really interesting. I never thought about that until this episode here. Right. Are they now terraforming the water by using data centers to run it through to give it the frequency and then emptying it out into what is considered clean water? What if they re-inject it down into an aquifer?
I don't know. We're just talking about they're supposedly just cooling this stuff, but I don't know how those ideas, as far as, zeros and ones could translate over to the water that's cooling it. But just the idea of the negativity, the amount of negativity, news, stories, fictions, other things that are on the internet, that being the thing that it exposes the water. And then to further that, we're nothing more than a mostly water crystal ourselves. So when we're absorbing these patterns through the Wi-Fi, through the television, through the media, the social media, opinions from people, opinions from AI, there's no way that you could argue logically that we're not being affected in exactly the same way as that experiment charging the water negative or positive. I mean, we are the water.
Well, because in some processing facilities, they will run whatever product it is, let's say water, for example, or corn or something. They'll run it through a UV light to kill bacteria off of it. Like a lot of things coming from the ag side when it first comes off the field, or that second processing after it's blown and separated through gravity separation or something, it'll come onto a conveyor belt. And a lot of times before it goes to that next step, maybe before it's ground, they will, as it goes on the conveyor belt, there's a large beam of like infrared there or UV, excuse me, that kills off pathogens or bacteria as it goes down the conveyor belt. So could something be programmed in the data centers as that water is moving through it to change that crystalline structure? No different than if we have corn on a conveyor belt or something that before it's ground into corn flour, that would run through some sort of light to mitigate any of these sickness things that could be on the corn. Could we not do the same thing by running through? But the data centers, how large are they? They're, when you're running something on a conveyor belt, you're talking about multiple feet of when it goes through that beam of light. Data center, that thing could go a mile of that energetic frequency pulsed into it before it ever releases. I mean, you really don't know what's going on in these centers. I mean, they say it's just to cool the boards. Well, again, even if it's just to cool it, you're running through an electrical field. And regardless, let's just take it down to the super barest minimum. Just say, forget the Yamamoto experiments. We're not putting any like thought into the water molecules. There's no thought in it. Like none of that resonance can go in, not a human idea, nothing on the internet. Nothing gets put into that water from human thought or resonance or feeling or emotion into the water. But the very base construct is it's running through a massive electrical field that's different from its initial charge, miles and miles through pipes in a different frequency field, and then it's pumped out into the water. At that very base level, electrically, it's changed. It's not the same water. It's a hybrid water. It's like a synthetic water at that point that's being exited out. That's the whole thing. Originally, when I was reading this thing, I was thinking on the electric side of it. I wasn't thinking on the emotional charge side of it, but those two are quite easy to put together. But at the very base minimum, you've electrically changed the water. So that does constitute as pollution, does it not? Because we change chemical makeups, we move an atom over here, we do something, and it changes what, quote, it is. That's why KFC has to call it KFC, not Kentucky Fried Chicken, because the chickens, the way they've been bred, don't qualify as chickens anymore under the standard definition and the FDA's definition of a chicken. The way the deformation of the breast sizes and the leg sizes and the different things born without beaks on purpose bred this way. It doesn't constitute what is considered a chicken. So legally, that went through the court battle for years and years and years. That's why you see it called KFC now. Because legally they could not meet the definition of a chicken, so they had to pull back from calling it chicken. That's why it's called KFC. Now that's no different than this water that's going through the data centers that's going to be spit out on the backside. That's something different than water. It's an electrified version of what previously was water.
Right. And then when you really think about this whole network that we're talking about, from the street level scanning us and tracking us and tracing us, and then when you kind of bump up the idea about the manipulation here, not just of the water, but the whole ideas spreading around the internet, the control mechanisms now controlled by AI. And you have to wonder, like, how much is that affecting you on not just, a metaphysical possible way, but directly how AIs can reinforce false beliefs, continually giving people search results or things that are not true. And then wait till it's direct. It's a direct implant, not unlike Neuralink or some of these other peripherals that are now hitting the market. Which, by the way, are the base layer again. I keep saying this. Whenever you see a program, you have to think, what is the next stage of it? So we're at the peripheral stage to get people used to integrating their biology with technology. A little brain plant here, a little prosthesis here. Next thing, you get the direct, connection on the cellular level through the hydrogel platform. Now you can start not only programming information in a technological sense, but you're also changing the DNA on a genetic level to, interact with these new technologies and programs. And some of the stuff I've been reading is so far out there that I think that they have a good idea on how they're going to integrate these programs. And right now that we're still into the get used to it phase, the introduction phase, the flock cameras, the peripherals, getting everyone that's alive now, especially the children, alpha and beta and Z, to get used to the new arrangement of the world. And I was just telling my son that yesterday, you're the first generation, not me, that's going to be here witnessing the changeover, to where it's completely like a sci-fi movie where you're getting retinal scanned and all your bio information is being scanned constantly. There's things overhead tracking you. Everything is delivered. Everything is digital. Nothing that you own, none of your paperwork, the wills, all of that stuff is all going into the digital realm and subject to manipulation from programmers and artificial intelligence programmed to destabilize, like every other program invented by the elite.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something strange too. Yesterday, I had a notice from my bank that made me sign a new stipulation about taking everything on digital signature. And I couldn't even log into my online banking until I clicked yes and agreed to that term of electronic signature. Also, interestingly, it occurred at the same day that this tokenization aspect of things turned on as well. So, it's interesting how the bank went in the same day and made those changes to being able to move everything over to digital signature. And they were very clean talking about broker dealers and settlements inside of something that's their settlement and clearing house, that my bank account is under their settlement and clearing house. And it was all directly just related around this here. So I'm just going to quickly go through it and just the use cases for this thing. Collateral pledge is like you're having a bad debt and you're putting all the world's asset and money valued at something into a big basket. That's the collateral pledge. Now, we in America, everything in our stock market, our bond market, the ETFs, all real estate, art, antiques, passed down generational wealth, gold, silver, all mines, all forests, all fisheries, waters, waterways, cars, boats, vessels, airplanes, companies themselves, all can be valued at something. And that is all having a smart contract associated with it in the future. That's the collateral pledge. Like, we'll have that much value in this basket as our collateral pledge is America's basket of tokenized assets. Now, the Treasury repos, when banks were going to fail, the Treasury would offer them money overnight to stop the banks from failing. And this is really interesting because in 2019, just months before COVID started, the Treasury came to the point where they were lending more than $1 trillion a night to stop our US banks from failing, because no other bank would lend money to another bank because they were worried about not getting paid back the next day. And then it went to 1.2 trillion, and it jumped from $1 trillion to 1.2 trillion in like under a week. And they're like, whoa, we're at the collapse phase. And then boom, COVID comes. They got never any money printing, and everybody was happy and trusted everybody again. That COVID saved our global financial system from a 2008 times 10 collapse, believe it or not. The equity DVD or the equity DVP trade and the equity token conversion, as in the actual physical value that can be extracted. So let's use your house for as example. You bought it for $100,000, it's worth $500,000, there's $400,000 of equity in that. That's pulled out in its own basket, measurable, versus the debt obligation you have. That's in a different basket. So they're stripping out everything in terms of the cost that it costs to buy it and the actual value that's over that now. They're stripping those two things apart, literally. And let me see if I can get on what else here. And there's some other financial terms I wasn't really familiar with here, like the DVD tray, the CCP margin. The cross-chain conversion is right now where we're kind of stuck with a lot of blockchain applications where they can't move across chains because like Chainlink's its own self and Stellar's its own thing. But now they're getting these interoperable layer one protocols where they can jump across chains. And this solves every single problem. So they've already obviously solved this, or else they wouldn't be touting it. So who came and actually converted equities, as in stocks, and some did bonds. So let's look over Citadel. That's one of the largest firms on the planet. Well, along with the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, they did a collateral pledge. Now, it was unknown. They don't tell you what collateral they pledged, but obviously they had something. And then the equity token conversion, Velocity Capital, yesterday took billions of stocks and wrapped them in a smart contract and turned them into this new tokenized stock. Now, it's in a bucket somewhere, so people can pull from that bucket if there's a financial collapse or crisis coming. The actual real stocks in a wrapped smart contract, but the value of that is outside, and it's a floating form of that value is usable, but you don't have to sell the shares. Like the shares are locked in there. They're just stripping out the equity to be able to use without actually having to sell the share. And you can pull from that as like a central bank or a company from somewhere, a banking system. Myrex and Drive Wealth, they exchange tokens. And this is the biggest thing. They talked about this in their videos. They did a simultaneously payment swap. Now, normally that would take 2 days, even now 24 hours. But they did it simultaneously where there was no risk, and within seconds, that money was available for both parties to use again. And they were just saying simply just stocks trading before they go on the ledger and then it's actually credited to your account. That's going to open up like $2 trillion per 1 day just by doing the simple stocks. They didn't talk about bonds or anything else. So we're talking about tens of trillions of dollars unlocking every day because they can settle super fast, instantly almost. Myrex use U.S. Treasuries. They tokenize U.S. Treasuries, use those, wrap them in a smart contract, strip the value out, and said, okay, you can use this as a repurchase agreement, meaning you can borrow those, but you're still going to have to pay the interest on them. Unknown, I don't know what the interest rate they set, but a government can borrow that without actually having to buy the underlying real U.S. Treasury. They're actually borrowing it from Myrex and their basket of capital versus owning the real U.S. Treasury, so you can spin it back without having our oversight on it. Societe Generale seems to be a big one in here. Again, Citadel Securities, all stocks, and Societe Generale Bank, meaning you and my bank deposits in there have been pledged into this bucket of collateral of assets that can be used and swapped anywhere on the planet that needs financial help. And then we got Societe Generale where they were doing their token conversion, making their own treasury out of this. There's a few steps that seem to be involved in setting up the smart contract, becoming a treasury for this capital, bucketing it in a collateral pool, and then allowing others to tap into that collateral pool under the umbrella of the U.S. Collateral pool. So it seems like there's levels within it, but it all comes up and bubbles to the surface. And then we got JP Morgan and the CME on their margin. So a lot of times big banks will get margin called because they took a wrong position. Like gold, for example, they'll have 50 billion in gold options out there. Oops, and went the wrong direction. So they can pull from a specific quote unquote margin balance bucket of asset value to push against there so they don't get margin called. They'll wait 100 years before it comes back up or comes down or up to the price that they needed to clear again. So they will never have to pull another dime out of their own pocket to cover their bad bets. They'll just pull it from somewhere else and they'll wait as long as it takes. And this is going to cost, I don't know what the value amounts are in this thing here, but the CME, this is where all the metals and the grains and all this stuff comes from. And then we got Citadel Securities, equity tokens again. Then we got Alpaca, equity tokens means stocks. They've converted traditional stocks, wrapped them in a smart contract that's sitting over here. The stocks still exist, but they pulled the equity out of the actual value of the money. And that's in a bucket that's usable, that can swing around. That was the whole thing about, like, your house is locked up. You can't really use your house to buy stuff. It's really, you can't move it to another country. You can't use it to really day-to-day transactions. Well, they've made this possible now. Your house is stripped out, the equity, the value increases now, usable money for somebody else, not me or you, by the way, not me or you, for the banks and these institutions. Then we got BNP Paribas, and then we got Vanguard. Both did the same thing with equities and security lending yesterday. Like, this is big, super big, like gigantico big, and nobody's even looking at it. And then look for this. This is the next thing in the news you're going to start seeing again and again and again. They're going to have to. Every country on the planet in unison as of yesterday and today has suddenly passed all these crypto laws. They have to, because to be in this system, you have to be in the tokenized blockchain system. So Japanese passed a bill legalizing Bitcoin and crypto ETFs, reducing crypto taxes from 55% to 20%. And today they just whacked the knees out of the United States by offering 3% on stable coins in a Japanese bank. Welcome. You can do the simple KYC, give us your name, give us your address, your country of residence, send in a photo of your passport, and we'll open a bank account for you. Deposit your money here, we'll give you 3%. Oh, by the way, we're going to use those same rails as yesterday that launched, and we're going to flip it into a stable coin, and we'll just kick you back stable coins 3%. Every single nation on the planet right now is running to these, here's another one, let me pull it up here. Bolivia, as of yesterday, ongoing integration with Tether into national payment system. See, every nation on earth has to suddenly tokenize to get into this new system that DTCC has launched by October of 2026. So every nation on the planet needs to instantly pass laws and move into the new system if they haven't already been. But this is what we're going to start to see across everywhere on the planet. This is it. Let me see what else got. Yeah, and here we go. South Korea set up new management laws yesterday because here's the thing. Their stock, 1 out of 30 people got margin called yesterday. So 1 out of 30 people with stocks, which is everybody in Korea. That's how you saved your money. 1 out of 30 Koreans got margin called and lost all their savings yesterday. 1 out of 30 bankrupted in America yesterday, or bankrupted in Korea yesterday. So they set up suddenly these new laws as of 24 hours ago that you can't do margin on the stocks anymore in Korea. But guess what? You can bring it under a new crypto law with blockchain. Wow. And that just continues. And then DTC, the bottom one there, DTCC, they tokenized yesterday the S&P 500, all of it. Microsoft, QQQ shares, which is an ETF, and treasuries for all Wall Street firms. They moved trillions of dollars into wrapped smart contracts onto this new system yesterday, and it made no news.
Wow.
No news. That's the craziest part. We started a new financial system yesterday, and there's no news about it. Unless you follow, and like I do, I'm really interested in this stuff because I want to see the future. I want to know how to protect myself. And then South Africa coming up with all these new laws that any South African, beware. If you're flying back into the country or you're leaving the country, if you have any like crypto devices with you, they will put you in jail until you give them the private keys. And if they decide they want to sell your crypto, they will do it under forced liquidation. Yeah, that's where already South Africa is. That's not a law, that's a blueprint to where the rest of the planet's going. So then are you going to have to like start stashing devices in every country you think you're going to move to?
No, you're going to have
Am I going to take a piece of paper with me with my phrase on it and then like set up a new wallet? Oh, wait, you can't in Europe because you can't use a VPN.
No.
Like this is getting insane already. I mean, we are at the cusp of this full vice coming in on all things financial. You got less than 6 months to figure this out. So that's the best I can do for you to try to rattle it out here as quickly as we could in the last minutes. But what do you think, Ransom? Any ideas on that?
Yeah, if you want to take your crypto and move countries and you can't take devices, then you need to set up your own personal cipher, write letters to yourself, and decode your cipher, and then you have your information on the other side. Old school.
We're going to go back old school. We're going to go back to paper again.
Right. That's absolutely what I would want to do. If I had information I needed to get to myself, but I knew that it would be monitored in such a way. Obviously, you're not going to be able to just remember things. So you'd have to create a personalized cipher and find some way to send it to yourself and decode it and reuse it. I was going to ask you while we have a couple minutes, you sent me this video. It's a minute 33. Did you want to play that? I didn't know what it
Sure,
was
let me
about.
see what I sent you a few things this morning.
The host
here in
pipe ban is
Taiwan. Oh
absolutely
yeah,
bollocks,
this one
and
great.
here's why. Ishka Aaron have said that the host pipe ban is absolute
Can you turn it up a little
and
bit?
here's why. Ishka Aaron have
no.
said that data centres
Okay.
in Ireland last year used 608,000 megalitres of water. And when you say it quickly, it doesn't seem like that much. And megalitres is a perfectly acceptable unit of measurement. But it's being used to minimise the damage. 608,000 megalitres is 608 billion litres of water. I appreciate that we haven't had rain for a while. I appreciate things like evaporation and the water cycle. I understand how these things work. Saying I can't water the food crops, tiny bloody peas and herbs growing in my back garden, saying that I can't use a few litres of water every evening to water those so that I can eat those crops. Saying that that's worse than data centres using 608 billion litres of water in the year is unconscionable. And it's just another way that large corporations are completely absolved of all their environmental sins, while the consumer is made feel like the big bad fucking wolf once again.
Wowzers, man. 608 billion liters, man. That's a lot of water.
Yeah, and they won't even let you use 3 to 4 liters to water your plants at night to keep your own fresh veg coming in on you.
Wow, man.
See, this is the thing where they're starting to pass laws and then they can enforce them by drone technology. They fly over and do those scans and they can see if somebody's watered. If you have, then you're going to get a fine.
Yeah.
It's just cheaper to go to the supermarket and buy it than grow your own, because if I'm going to get the fine for growing it and I don't know what days I can water or not.
You want to hear something funny, though? Several weeks ago, I had to start a new garden. And I've been using raised beds and different stuff. And the best thing so far that I found, at least for desert farming, is literally just to dig a big hole in the ground and then fill it full of soil almost all the way up, where you get a little reservoir to hold water, and then farm that way. However, it was really hot. It was in the 100 plus there for, during that time period. So I didn't want to work in the daytime. So I got out some bright lights and did the digging. It's not too loud at nighttime. I got my pick and my shovel out there and I'm digging the hole and I got these lights shining on it. And then I realized that I have several in a row and the sheriff's department helicopter flies over and is shining the spotlight on my yard. And I'm thinking, that probably does look weird from up above, that I'm building yet another hole in the ground with a bunch of tarps and some bright lights and we're digging out. And I realized it looked like a series of graves in my land there. And I was wondering, are they going to come over here and ask me what I'm doing? But they never did show up. But it kind of raises the question, how soon will it be until this is a common occurrence where drones are flying over or trucks are driving by or whatever it is that's scanning your house? And then, like I said, somewhere in cyberspace, they're coming up with, metering your existence by issuing citations and summons and code violations and warrants after you don't pay it eventually. So that's the kind of future we're looking ahead at. And Florida has already started their pilot program.
That'd have been cool if you already had a tarp set up. It's on rollers that went from one end of your gated area all the way across, and as the fire, you could have just rolled the tarp all the way back. That would have freaked them out. For sure, you would have gotten a visit. What are you hiding from us? Nothing. I'm just planting a garden. What else? Anyway, thanks for joining us tonight, the Civilization Cycle podcast. Please remember to join us. Get the show notes. Sign up for the newsletter. We're approaching 1,000 on the newsletter right now. Thank you so much. Put your email address in there. Get you out. I sent it just before the show tonight. So look in your email box for that from last week of the different things we spoke about. This is an interesting episode. Try to wrap those in for 10, put a few interesting graphs in there, give you some thoughts for the week to carry you through, start the conversations. And also, if you appreciate this type of content, please support us over at buymeacoffee.com/civilization cycle. And until next week, think of the solutions and type them in the comment box. We'll take a look. And 7 days, we'll be back at it again.